20 minutes into my meeting, I discovered the heartwarming secret my husband hidden in my coffee. Laura sat at the conference table, her palms slick with sweat, heart pounding like a drummer in a parade. Today was the day finally. The promotion she had been working towards for the last 3 years was within reach. She felt every ounce of anxiety swirling inside her as her thoughts raced to the home she had left behind. The breakfast table, the worn-out chairs, and Jake's infectious laughter echoed in her mind. Then, just for a moment, she remembered the aroma of freshly brewed coffee that filled their kitchen that morning. As she wrapped her hands around her coffee cup during the meeting, a gentle warmth seeped through the ceramic, cooling the restless energy in her body, if only just a little. She took a sip, but her taste buds detected more than just coffee. At the bottom lay a small, folded piece of paper. Curious, she fished it out, and her heart twisted as she read her husband's meticulous scrawl. Laura, you are more than your job. Believe in your worth. Love, Jake. Tears pricked her eyes, the weight of his words almost suffocating her. Jake, her rock, was acknowledging the storm of self-doubt she battled daily, urging her to see herself beyond spreadsheets and budgets. The warmth of that love surged inside her, outweighing the dread of the meeting ahead. Their shared struggles, finances, parenting, dreams deferred were the pillars of their partnership, reminding her that they were in this together. But then, just as she began to bask in that love, the meeting took a sharp turn. Her boss cleared his throat and announced with a flourish that her colleague, Nick, had secured the promotion she had fought for tooth and nail. Laura felt as though the floor dropped out from under her. The room spun, laughter from their banter moments ago replaced by the deafening silence of her colleagues' gazes darting toward her, expectantly. The pang of jealousy stabbed through her so sharply that her hand trembled. She felt hollow, like a balloon deflating. Why did it feel as if her ambitions were now worth less than they were just moments ago? Her husband's note, a reminder of her value, stood in stark contrast to the bitterness that now gripped her heart. Tears brimming in her eyes, she juggled this internal war. Was she merely a piece on a corporate chessboard, or was she something more, defined by love, resilience, and shared dreams? The pressing question burrowed deeper. Did her self-worth hinge on a title? Before she had time to answer, her boss's attention turned to her. Laura, what do you think? All eyes fell on her, and in that instant, the world around her blurred into insignificance. Her breath quickened, time stood still, and the thunderous weight of expectations bore down like a heavy blanket. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As if the room mirrored her torment, a hush fell over everyone, a singular moment of disbelief suspended in time. Heart racing, Laura's mind swirled with the beauty of Jake's note and the crushing disappointment wrapped around her. Who was she really? The mom who steadied her kids during storms, or the employee who succumbed to the tides of competition? Her own resolve wavered in that split second. Would this be the moment that fully defined her? The question hung like a guillotine, and with that, Laura felt the burden of choice resting squarely on her. The love she bore for her family and her ambition for career success stood at a crossroads. Which path would she take in the battle between love and ambition? As the silence broke, she opened her mouth. Uncertainty flickered in her eyes. But in this moment of chaos, one thing was crystal clear. She needed to find her truth, her identity, even in the turmoil surrounding her. How it would all unfold next remained a mystery, one that held the promise of both growth and heartbreak. For a brief moment, the silence stretched, heavy and taut, as all eyes pinned onto Laura. She could feel the heat flooding her cheeks, an involuntary response to a question she suddenly felt unqualified to answer. Yet deep within her, Jake's words ignited a flicker of defiance. "Thank you," she managed to murmur, her voice barely rising above a whisper, but still strong enough to draw attention back to her. As she looked around the room, shame washed over her like a cold wave. Despite her anguish, something inside her stirred, newly awakened. Her colleagues mostly wore expressions of concern, tempered by an undercurrent of awkwardness. Nick, the newly promoted rival, glanced at her, perhaps sensing her inner turmoil, but she could hardly focus on his gaze. The enormity of what she was feeling eclipsed everything in the room: the disappointment, the jealousy, and even the broken dreams. "Laura?" It was an encouraging nudge from her boss, Greg, who seemed sincerely invested in her response. "We'd love to hear your perspective." In that moment, she took a sharp breath, tasting the bitterness of rejection and the sweetness of love all at once. She could either stumble into self-sabotage or rise up from this. Did her heart want to plead for fairness, or did it yearn to reclaim her passion? It's hard to process," she began, words spilling out now. "I had set my sights on this promotion, and yes, I thought I was ready." Nervous glances exchanged around the table began to spark clarity in Laura's mind. "I realize, though, that my identity is not limited to that title. I'm a mom, a partner, and yes, a professional. Each of those pieces is significant." She held her coffee cup tightly, feeling its warmth seep through the doubts and fears like sunlight through clouds. Her voice grew steadier, adrenaline coursing through her as she spoke. "Jake and I work hard every day to build a life together, to support one another's dreams. If I've learned anything through this ordeal, it's that our journey defines us, not just the accolades." As she finished, the room erupted into a hushed collection of murmurs and nods. A few colleagues offered polite claps, while others looked thoughtful, as if her words had ignited something they had buried deep. Yet despite the supportive atmosphere, she still had no idea how she truly felt about her ambition now, swirling aimlessly in a whirlpool of emotion and urgency. Was her heart truly ready to let go of climbing that corporate ladder? Did it even matter if Nick wore the crown, as long as she could continue to lead her own life? The battle raged on within her. "All right, Laura," Greg said, breaking the tension, "we appreciate your honesty. Let us keep this conversation open. And if you'd like, we can discuss what paths are available moving forward, together." A mix of relief and apprehension washed over her. He was offering her a chance, a shot to still be part of the game without having the title. But within that offer lingered uncertainty. Was it enough? Later that evening, Laura found herself at home, the comforting smell of a home-cooked meal wafting through the air. Jake looked up from the kitchen counter, a wry smile on his lips. "So, how did it go?" She hesitated, gathering her thoughts while the weight of the day settled heavily on her shoulders. The uncharted waters she faced felt daunting, but she also felt lighter, as if she had shed a piece of the weight she'd carried for too long. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, she caught herself thinking of what the future might hold. Would she still chase that promotion, or perhaps forge a different path altogether? In this moment, she knew one thing for sure: she wouldn't face it alone. As she sat beside Jake, looking into his expectant eyes, she realized there was power in her decision. Whatever path she decided to tread came with implications. But a part of her longed to unearth possibilities, dreams that had long lain dormant. With a deep breath, she felt the energy building inside her as she whispered, "I think it's time for us to talk about what's next. Together." And just like that, the future beckoned with an uncertain urgency. What lay ahead could change everything. Laura could feel her heart beating a little faster as she sat across from Jake, the smell of roasted garlic mingling with the aroma of rich coffee filling the air. This moment felt charged, almost electric. She set her mug down and searched his face for answers, his eyes glinting with an affection that both comforted and stirred her apprehension. "What's next then?" Jake asked, his voice calm but encouraging. That question hung between them like a bridge she needed to cross. She had never felt so misaligned with her own aspirations, and the safety of the home they built felt like the only steady ground beneath her now. Taking a moment, she sifted through her thoughts. "I think I need to explore what opportunities are still out there, without that promotion hanging over my head." She hesitated, uncertain about where her words would land. "Like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about climbing a ladder." Jake nodded, eyes sparkling with interest. "What if we approached it differently?" There was an earnestness in his tone, as if he had been pondering this for a while. "You could start a side project. Something you're passionate about outside of the office." That suggestion made her pulse quicken. The idea of diving into something purely her own felt freeing, but still intimidating. I have so many ideas, but I've never really pursued them. What's stopping you? He asked, leaning forward, his dark hair falling slightly into his eyes. She admired the way he listened, genuinely invested in her feelings and ambitions. I don't know, fear, maybe. Fear of failure, or that I'll put my whole heart into it again and still come up short. Her voice trembled as she spoke, as honesty had a way of leaving her exposed. Then you take it one step at a time, he replied softly. Every dream begins with a single step. Remember, every time you look at that cup, you see the potential it holds. She smiled at that analogy, the idea transforming her anxiety into something tangible. So I guess I begin with the first pour. Just then, a gentle chime from her phone pulled them back into reality. It was a group chat from her colleagues, bustling with excitement about a project someone had taken on. With each message she read, the familiar pang of longing nudged her heart, a desperate wish to be part of something more than just the roles she was clinging to. Hey, she said, her voice even, what if we could work on something together? Like if I start exploring my passions, you could help me navigate through it. Jake's eyes sparked. You mean, we could turn our kitchen into a workspace? Why not? Mixing our ideas, your engineering skills combined with my creativity. They both chuckled at the ridiculousness of the mental picture, where a pizza oven collided with design sketches. But it also felt invigorating. The prospect of collaborating with Jake, each of them pushing the other toward unknown horizons, filled the room with warmth. Their laughter faded as Jake's expression turned serious again. And if any of this doesn't sit right with you, I'm always here to listen. Whatever journey you take next, I'll be your biggest fan. In that moment, she felt that whirlpool of emotion shift. The idea of stepping beyond her fears instead of succumbing to them suddenly seemed less daunting. But I want it to mean something more, she continued, her curiosity bubbling beneath the surface. What about turning this passion into something bigger? Jake grinned, a glint of excitement dancing across his face. Now that's the spirit. What are we waiting for? Let's brainstorm some ideas tonight. As they shared excitement and ideas, Laura almost forgot about worry for the future. Instead, a sense of adventure ignited a flame within her spirit. But amid the thriving energy, a thought flickered in the back of her mind, a stirring question that refused to fade. If they took this leap, would the world embrace their dreams, or were they simply setting themselves up for yet another tumble? Little did she know, an unexpected twist was waiting just around the corner, one that could change everything they thought they knew about each other. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the kitchen as Laura and Jake spread out some notepads and markers on the table. Excitement bubbled between them, but beneath it lingered a tension that was hard to ignore. Jake shuffled a few papers, trying to keep the energy light. Okay, how about we start with what actually fuels us? Jake suggested, flipping open his notepad to a blank page. What do you love to do? Laura paused, thoughts colliding. Well, I've always loved cooking, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But it's more than that. I want to share it, like start a blog, or she hesitated, fear creeping in. I don't know. Something that tells a story. Jake's brow furrowed with concentration. What kind of stories? She grinned, remembering the laughter and warmth of her family gathered around the dinner table. You know, the meals that brought us together. Recipes passed down that carry memories. And we could add your photography skills into the mix. Jake's face brightened. We could create something beautiful together. Food and memories seemed to go hand in hand. Her heart warmed at the thought. It was easy for her mind to swirl into what-ifs, yet Jake's enthusiasm pulled her back. That could work, she said, her energy rising. But what if I pour my heart into it and no one reads it? What if it's just invisible? Those invisible things, they often lead to the biggest impacts, he replied, his voice calm but fervent. You never know who might find comfort in your words or inspiration in your dishes. Laura studied his face, searching for any hint of doubt, but found none. Instead, there was a flicker of faith in his eyes that seemed to light a path. All right, then let us do this, she declared, her anxiety slowly being replaced by a buzz of determination. Just then, they heard a faint knock. Curious, Laura stood up and opened the door to find her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, holding a basket of fresh vegetables. Thought you might like these, she said, her smile warm and kind. These tomatoes are fresh off the vine. Thank you so much. Laura beamed, accepting the bright red fruits. Perfect timing. As she returned to the kitchen, inspiration surged. I could make a summer salad for the blog. A recipe straight from right next door, she suggested, already picturing the photos. Absolutely. Jake agreed, his eyes shining. Let us start there. Something simple but packed with flavor and stories. They grabbed more notepads, sketching out ideas for the salad, planning a few narratives to accompany each dish. Laughter bubbled up like the froth of boiling water. For the first time in what felt like forever, Laura felt authentic hope blooming inside her chest, but just when she thought everything was aligning, a thought struck her, a reminder that simmered beneath the surface. Inviting this creativity into their lives would mean exposing herself in ways she had long avoided. Jake, she began hesitantly, what if doing this changes things between us? What if he reached out, capturing her hand? It's okay to be scared. But state your boundaries. This is a partnership. We'll figure it out together. That reassurance wrapped around her, but another knot tightened in her stomach. They were stepping into uncharted territory, and along with it came uncertainty. Suddenly, a weird feeling swept over her, like a gust of wind warning her of approaching clouds. What if we're not ready for the truths that surface? She asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. Jake's grip around her hand tightened, his expression resolute. No matter what it is, we face it together, remember? Just keep that in mind as we leap. As they stood together, anticipation mingled with trepidation, and Laura wondered just how deep this journey would take them. What secrets were hidden between the lines of their stories? What would they discover together, and could they handle the truths that might unfold? And as she glanced at the tomatoes glistening under the kitchen lights, Laura knew this was only the beginning of something much more profound than just a simple salad. Would they be brave enough to uncover the real heart of who they were? The clock ticked steadily on the wall, an almost rhythmic reminder of the moments passing by. Laura felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with anxiety as she and Jake began to brainstorm. They scribbled ideas down frantically, the room echoing with their hopes and laughter. This one could have a nostalgic twist, Jake said, his pen dancing across the page. You could write about your grandma's secret ingredient. Laura smiled. And how it would always create this incredible aroma that filled the whole house as she spoke, memories wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She could almost hear her grandmother's soft laugh, the smell of cinnamon wafting through the air as they stirred together. Cooking wasn't just about the food, it was about family. The thought rooted deeper in her. But what if it isn't perfect? She interjected, the shadow of doubt creeping back. What if I can't do justice to the stories? Jake leaned closer, his gaze earnest. Perfection isn't the goal. It's about the honesty in what you share. That's what people connect with. Laura nodded slowly, feeling the truth in his words. Each recipe would carry more than just flavors, it would carry heart and personality. The hesitation began to fade, the room, alight in the fading golden glow from the window, turned momentarily still, heavy with possibility. Yet, as Laura's enthusiasm grew, the previously thrilling notion of sharing became daunting again. What if their partnership would stretch to its limits, exposing vulnerabilities they hadn't prepared for? I just wonder how this all fits into us, she finally murmured, the weight of the question shifting the air. What if I open up and it leads us to a place we can't come back from? Jake paused, contemplating her words. Every journey has twists, Laura. And sometimes, it's those unexpected turns that bring us closer. His voice was steady and reassuring. She felt her heart pound, a blend of excitement and worry. It scared her, but the prospect of not trying terrified her more. Would they emerge stronger, or would they find cracks they had tried to ignore? Determined, she flicked through memories of her family, laughter woven through each moment. All right, Let us brainstorm one dish that feels like home, she suggested, her voice tinged with hope. Something that tells my story. With renewed zeal, they dove into brainstorming again, throwing around ideas tied to emotion and nostalgia. The kitchen filled with fervor, lists of ingredients floated through the bright air, each infused with memories and warmth, but beneath the joyful chaos lurked the unshakable feeling she couldn't ignore. If they were to dive deeper into these stories, what else might surface? Would their pasts reveal parts of themselves that were hard to face? Moments later, they found themselves hesitating, the weight of unspoken truths hanging palpable between them. Laura's mind raced again, the revelations swirling like mist in her thoughts. Jake, she finally said, her breath even catching. If we dig this deep, how will we stay grounded? I mean, how do we ensure the unexplored doesn't push us apart? He looked at her with newfound curiosity, a sweet little crease forming on his brow. Maybe it isn't just about keeping grounded. Maybe it's time to learn how to fly together, even with the fear beneath us. Laura could hardly breathe. This wasn't just about recipes, it was about navigating the unknowns of a relationship tangled with past pains and shared dreams. As she looked into Jake's eyes, she felt a mix of love and fear. What awaited them at the bottom of this creative endeavor? And would their leaps of faith be enough to hold back the shadows of doubt? In that moment, the tomatoes lay forgotten on the counter, their vibrant colors waiting, perhaps for something more than just a salad. The question lingered, would they both be willing to embrace whatever truths might surface, even if it meant facing the storms brewing in their hearts? Laura's heart raced as Jake's words sunk in, each syllable igniting a blend of hope and fear. The kitchen quieted, the faint hum of home replaced by a silence heavy with possibility. Laughter faded, replaced by the weight of unknown depths lurking beneath the surface. She could feel the tension, tight ropes pulling at the edges of their friendship, a bond both fragile and beautiful. Let us not just think about the dishes, she said slowly, trying to gather strength. What if each recipe also uncovers parts of us? Could the kitchen reveal things we've buried? Jake's expression turned thoughtful, as if he were mapping out a new adventure. Isn't that what makes cooking special? He smiled, but his eyes revealed an intensity. Each ingredient has its own story, just like us. We can't avoid the bittersweet flavors of life if we really want to share what's in our hearts. Laura sighed, her chest fluttering at his words. There was an elegance in vulnerability that unsettled her. But what if the truths we uncover are too much? What if they change everything? Change can be good, Jake said, his voice steady, almost soothing. It brings growth. I mean, think about a recipe that goes awry but ends up becoming something new, something better than we expected. He paused, studying her reaction. You know, like your grandma's special cookies? Maybe the surprise ingredient wasn't planned, but it added something amazing. You mean the time we used double the sugar? She chuckled, remembering the sugar-sprinkled disaster they had baked together last summer. They had laughed until their stomachs hurt, the kitchen a mess but the memories golden. Jake laughed, and in that moment, the fog of her worries began to lift. Exactly. So let us just write from our hearts. If we make mistakes, we'll share them too. Instead of shying away, we'll embrace the flavor of life. His enthusiasm spread to her, wrapping around her like a cozy sweater. Yet, underlying it all, a shadow flickered. Deep down, she worried about what pieces of herself she would unveil. Would she share moments of pain as vividly as those of joy? The thought was almost suffocating. Standing against the counter, overwhelmed, Laura voiced the question that had been swirling. What if my story is messy? What if the unfinished parts of my past don't fit the image I want to portray? Jake stepped closer, a reassuring presence in the midst of doubt. That's the beauty, Laura. Messiness is real life. Share your fears. Those are the stories that resonate. She looked at him, the warmth in his gaze igniting a flicker of hope. You really believe that? Absolutely. He held her stare intently. It's okay to be afraid. Just remember, you're not alone in it. We're in this together. Our stories, our mess, they're all pieces of a bigger picture. Warmth flooded her, pushing away the chill of uncertainty. They were diving deep, yes, but perhaps it was a chance for both of them to emerge transformed. Hope blazed, illuminating the path ahead, but as the moment settled between them, an uneasy thought brushed through her mind. What if the stories they uncovered started to carve away at what they thought was safe and stable? What truth lurked within those memories that might sever their bond? The clock ticked on, marking the time and the heartbeat of their shared journey. Laura took a breath, ready for the next step, yet grappling with the unresolved heaviness of what might lay ahead. "Okay, let us get started," she said finally, her voice firm with determination. "But we should be careful. Each recipe might lead to a new chapter, one we didn't see coming." With a nod, Jake reached for a notepad, spirits dancing like flames from the stove. "Let us make it count. And who knows? Maybe the best stories come from the churning emotions we've kept tucked away." As they began brainstorming again, Laura glanced at the forgotten tomatoes, her mind racing at the endless possibilities. But as they started jotting down memories, a deeper layer of uncertainty thickened the air. Would navigating these new chapters reveal the secrets they thought they could keep hidden? With each word that flowed, she couldn't shake the question, where would this journey take them, and would they still want to be together on the other side? The kitchen felt alive as Laura and Jake gathered their thoughts, the earlier heaviness morphing into a nervous excitement. Beans, tomatoes, and whatever inspiration came to mind cascaded from their minds onto the notepad. The clutter of the kitchen, with its worn countertop and lingering scent of spices, felt oddly fitting for the emotional journey they were about to embark on. "What about that time we tried to make a soufflé?" Laura suggested, a spark igniting in her eyes. "I still can't believe it collapsed. I was so stressed that day, but you were there, coaching me through it, even when we had to clean up the mess." Jake grinned, his laughter breaking the tension. "And it tasted awful, but the laughter we shared afterward? Priceless." His gaze softened for a moment, the memories surfacing like bubbles in simmering water. "Those moments taught me that failure is part of the process. It reminds us to appreciate the good, to navigate through chaos." Laura nodded, using his words like a lifeline. "It's funny, isn't it? How food can stir memories so deeply. Every dish we make can hold pieces of who we are." "That's what makes this special," Jake replied, leaning forward with genuine interest. "But let us dig deeper. What about those feelings that are harder to digest? What if we wrote about something a little darker?" Her heart thudded. You mean my parents' divorce?" The weight of those words sat heavily in the air. "Exactly." He drew nearer, the warmth in his voice contrasting the chilly reality of the topic. "It's part of your story. They say cooking is therapeutic. Maybe writing about it can be, too." Laura hesitated, chewing on his suggestion. Her parents had swirled into their own worlds years ago, leaving their kids trying to piece their lives back together. It was a big chunk of her past, messy and complicated. The memories felt hot like a bubbling pot, ready to boil over. But what if that doesn't resonate? What if it's just painful? Jake shrugged slightly, his eyes locking onto hers. "Pain is universal. It's the shadow behind every bright moment, creating depth in our lives. Sharing it might inspire others. Your experiences, even the tough ones, have value. And I'll be right here, whatever happens." With that, she took a steady breath, emboldened by his presence. "So, it's like the tomatoes, right? Sometimes, they can be out of season, and that changes everything. But every flavor adds to the journey, sweet or sour." "Exactly." He beamed, his enthusiasm rekindling hope in her heart. "This is about exploration. And if every story we tell serves up a little piece of ourselves, maybe we can uncover healing within it." His words sank deep, opening up soft spaces within her she hadn't known could exist. Maybe exploring the emotional depths could lead somewhere beautiful. But standing on the brink also felt terrifying. Could vulnerability really foster connection? "As we dig into these recipes of our lives, I can tell there are layers I've yet to peel away," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. but learning that it's okay to share is freeing. Maybe it's about making those uncomfortable flavors dance together in a way that tells the whole story. Jake nodded in firm approval, his faith igniting a light inside her. Just remember, it's all part of cooking. The heat can transform something ordinary into something magical. As Laura lifted her pen to write, she realized she was tracing the start of something significant. This wasn't merely about food, it was about life. Each ingredient held a story. Yet as she scripted her thoughts, she sensed the looming tide of uncertainty. Personal truths often demanded courage, and she felt herself teetering at the edge of that precipice. What awaited her in the depths of her story? Would the act of peeling back those layers enhance their bond, or draw them into uncharted territory? Suddenly, there was a subtle knock on the kitchen door, the sound pulling them out of their reverie. Jake glanced up, confusion furrowing his brow. Who could that be? Laura's heart quickened, sensing that whatever was behind that door could change everything they were beginning to share. The knock echoed again, louder this time, slicing through the air like a knife. Laura's heart pounded. She hadn't expected anyone. They had closed the world out to explore their own, and now the barrier felt fragile, about to shatter. Should we? Jake started to stand, uncertainty clouding his eyes. Wait. Laura reached out, grabbing his arm. Let us just see. As the door creaked open, the smell of fresh air collided with the mingled sense of spices and warmth in the kitchen. Standing there was Mrs. Henderson, their elderly neighbor, her face bright with a wide smile. In her hands, she clutched a colorful plate of cookies that glinted like jewels under the overhead light. Hi, dears. I figured you might be needing a little treat today, she said, her voice sing-songy, filling the space with warmth. Baked these just this morning. The lemon zest really makes them zing. Jake chuckled, the tension in his shoulders releasing as he approached her. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. You're always so thoughtful. Laura watched as he took the plate, feeling the weight of their earlier conversation tug at her. The cookies looked delightful, a sunny addition to their somber mood. But still, a part of her wanted to dive deeper into her thoughts, not be interrupted just yet. As Mrs. Henderson insisted they take a few to enjoy, Laura gave her a grateful smile. She opened the packet, inhaling the citrusy aroma, and felt an old memory tug at her heart. The smell of her mother's lemon bars in their sunlit kitchen, laughter mingled with fragrant joy. Laura, aren't these just wonderful? Jake's voice drew her back. He bit into a cookie and his eyes lit up. You know, I think these are some of the best cookies I've ever had. Yes, they are lovely, she murmured absently, distracted by the sudden wave of memories rushing in. Each bite of that cookie seemed to be stitched with the echoes of her childhood, where moments were not overshadowed by adult complexities. Mrs. Henderson leaned in a bit closer, her smile shifting to one of concern. Is everything okay? You both seem a little caught up in your thoughts today. Anything you want to talk about? Laura's heart constricted slightly at the offer. Here was someone ready to listen, but at what cost? Would it drag her back into the emotions she was trying to explore with Jake? It's just a little personal project we're working on, Jake answered, taking the lead. Writing and cooking, you know. Oh. That sounds exciting. Don't you love it when food brings people together? Mrs. Henderson said, her enthusiasm nearly infectious. I always find that sharing meals can heal wounds. Laura felt the invisible thread tighten at Mrs. Henderson's words. Could sharing their stories truly heal? Was she ready to blend all those flavors, both sweet and sour, into something palpable? As they chatted, laughter shared over cookies, Laura felt the grounding embrace of laughter in the kitchen. But the looming specter of her earlier contemplation still nestled in the back of her mind, refusing to quiet. Thanks again, Mrs. Henderson, she said, her smile widening though her thoughts stirred. You always brighten our day. Just as the door was about to close, Mrs. Henderson turned back, her face brightening again. Oh. Remember to keep an eye on that knock. You never know when life will throw something unexpected your way. The door clicked shut, leaving Jake and Laura in a cocoon of silence once more. What did she mean? Laura pondered aloud, the question slipping out unconsciously. A new wave of uncertainty swept through her due to both the conversation she wanted to have and the interruptions that kept reshaping it. Jake shrugged, glancing at her with intensity. Maybe unraveling our feelings is just the beginning. We have to be open to everything life throws at us, even when it feels messy. As Laura mulled over his words, another knock sounded, this time softer but layered with unmistakable urgency. They exchanged glances, and she felt her heart race again, the door becoming a symbol of all that lay ahead, the unknown, the vulnerable, the messy. Promising something interesting on the other side. What if that is someone who really needs to talk? Jake suggested, and there it was, the possibility echoing Mrs. Henderson's words. What if, indeed, she whispered, the chill of anticipation curling around her heart. Laura felt the weight of the moment settle around her like a thick fog. The knock had stirred something deep inside her, a mixture of apprehension and excitement, and she wasn't quite sure which was winning out. She glanced at Jake, who wore a look of apprehensive curiosity, even biting his lips slightly. They were at the edge of something, but what? Should we answer it? He asked, almost as if giving her the reins to the decision. Her eyes flickered back to the door. What if it's someone needing help? She replied, voice softening. With an instinctive nod, she moved toward the door. She wanted to know. They had kept their personal world contained, but this knock felt like a door opening to something else opening it, her breath caught in her throat. The sight before her was a whirlwind of colors and chaos. A young girl stood there, no older than 10, with wild curls and shoes untied. She was holding a small bouquet of dandelions, each yellow flower like a tiny burst of sunshine. "Hi!" the girl exclaimed, her eagerness spilling out. "I'm Lucy. I, made you these. They're for being nice. My mom said you baked cookies." Laura felt warmth spread in her chest. "Oh, thank you, Lucy. These are beautiful." The innocence in the girl's big brown eyes tugged at something inside her, and for the first time that day, she felt the tightness in her chest begin to loosen. Jake bent down, a playful smile on his face. "Do you want to try one of those cookies? Mrs. Henderson just dropped some off." Lucy nodded vigorously, her excitement palpable. "Yes, please. Cookies are the best." As Laura stepped aside to let her in, a burst of laughter bubbled up unknowingly. Lucy's presence seemed to fill the room with innocence and joy, reminding them both of simpler times even as adult worries clung like shadows. There was something grounding in her exuberance that soothed Laura's earlier anxieties. "Did you really bake cookies?" Lucy asked, disbelief coloring her tone as she eyed the platter. "Well, not me personally, but those cookies are pretty great," Jake said, grinning. "Do you want to try one?" As Lucy carefully took a cookie, Laura watched her with fascination. She could see how the sweetness of the moment wrapped around them, a contrast of tangy lemon and sugary warmth. For a few moments, they all shared the childlike joy of a simple cookie, laughter punchy and blissful. It almost felt like they were a family, enveloped in a fleeting moment out of time, but as the laughter subsided, an unmistakable cloud drifted back into Laura's mind. "Lucy, sweetie," Laura said cautiously, the reality of the world creeping back in. "Do you need anything?" Lucy tilted her head, her expression shifting momentarily. "My mom said she would come get me in a few minutes. She's just talking to our neighbor." Her voice trailed off, and for a breath, they all felt the weight of unsaid worries. Community, Laura thought, the word ringing softly. There was something about being connected, about sharing, just as Mrs. Henderson had said. Taking a deep breath, she knelt down to Lucy's level. "You know, sometimes sharing is a good way to make things feel lighter," she offered gently. Lucy nodded, chewing on her cookie, the sunshine in her eyes suddenly brighter. "Like when I share my toys with my friends. It makes them happy." "Yes." Jake jumped in, mirroring Laura's actions. "And happiness is like sprinkles on a cupcake. The more you share, the sweeter it gets." Just as they were busily discussing the merits of sprinkles, Lucy's expression shifted again. "What about feelings? Can you share those too?" Her innocent question hung in the air like a heavy blanket. Laura's stomach twisted, blood rushing to her face. Here was a child asking what felt like the most complex question in the world, a question that bared her soul, that beckoned to unearth the shadows. Jake glanced at Laura, his eyes wide. That's a good question. Sharing feelings can be hard, Laura admitted quietly, finding her voice. But sometimes it helps others feel less lonely. Lucy thought about this for a moment, nodding slowly. Like when you're sad and no one knows? A lump formed in Laura's throat. Exactly. Realization washed over her. Could they really learn to share in this way? If a 10-year-old could ask tricky questions, maybe it was her turn to finally face the answers. As the door creaked open again, it interrupted their moment. Laura turned to see Mrs. Henderson's familiar silhouette. Today had been full of surprises, and with every tick of the clock echoing in the air, a shift felt imminent. "George, can you help me, oh my?" Mrs. Henderson exclaimed, her gaze settling on Lucy. "Where did you find this little one?" Lucy stood tall, a cookie in hand. "I brought flowers." Laura felt the air crackle with possibilities. Perhaps this was just the beginning of something larger than herself. Something intricate and perhaps even messy, but open. Maybe, she thought as she exchanged glances with Jake and Lucy, sharing was the answer. But before she could voice her thoughts, they all turned back towards the door, bracing themselves for what was yet to come. The world spun differently now, a kaleidoscope of moments glimmering with new possibilities. In this charged air, Laura stood amidst the beautiful chaos unfolding around her. Lucy's innocent laughter danced through the kitchen, igniting something within her, a flicker of understanding, a revelation that she had been grappling with for too long. "Can you really share everything?" Lucy asked, her wide eyes fixed on Laura with a depth that belied her age. It felt as if the universe had sent this little girl to shake loose the walls Laura had built around her heart. Taking a breath, Laura knelt to meet Lucy at eye level again, the warmth of that connection grounding her. "Yes, sweetheart. We can if we trust in each other." The words flowed out, filling the space with a gentle truth that even she felt. There was power in vulnerability, a liberation in the act of sharing. Jake's presence next to her felt like both a comfort and a catalyst, amplifying this transformative moment. He nodded, adding, "It helps us feel less alone, Lucy. When we share, we discover we are all in this together, even when things get tough." As the moment hung delicately, Laura realized that for the first time, she wasn't just processing her feelings. She was beginning to embrace them, unveiling layers of her past while standing firm in the present. Everyone in that room could see the myriad choices life had thrust upon her, yet they also witnessed her resilience in the face of uncertainty. "Can I share my feelings, too?" Lucy's small voice broke through the weightiness. "Sometimes I feel sad when I don't see my dad." Just like that, a door opened wider. A hush fell around them, and in that mixture of complication and authenticity, Laura's heart ached. "Of course," Laura encouraged gently, "and it's okay to feel that way. We all carry things with us." She leaned in closer, her tone soothing. "But remember, sharing those feelings can help you feel lighter, even if the sadness stays for a while." Lucy considered this deeply, her tiny fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Her vulnerability was a mirror reflecting the difficulty of Laura's own journey, the effort of piecing together various parts of herself while navigating intertwined emotions of joy, grief, ambition, and doubt. Just then, Mrs. Henderson, who had been silent, stepped forward, placing a warm hand on Lucy's shoulder. "Sometimes sharing brings us a kind of magic, doesn't it? It lights up the shadows and helps us see things more clearly." In that instant, Laura witnessed a shift. The collective energy in the room pulsed with understanding, bridging generations and experiences. The laughter faded into a respectful silence, each person engulfed in their reflections. "Exactly. It makes the cookies taste sweeter." Lucy grinned, breaking the tension with her bright spirit, and then it happened. A moment of realization washed over Laura and Jake simultaneously. It was as if they both finally understood that opening up meant stepping into a world where not only their dreams but their fears took shape. Every dish they created, every story they shared would forge deeper connections, a hunger for belonging mingled with the sweetness of unapologetic expression. "Let us start writing those stories tonight," Laura declared, her voice strong and resolute. "I want to dig deeper. I want to explore the flavors of both my joy and my pain. And I want to find the beauty in all of it." Jake grinned, excitement in his eyes as he took Laura's hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm in this with you, whatever comes." Lucy bounced on her feet with delight. "Can I help? I want to write my story too." "Yes." Laura beamed, marveling at the beauty of this moment. "You can share all the lessons you've learned about flowers and cookies." Their laughter melded seamlessly, puncturing the heaviness that had once hung between them. It was a new beginning, a leap into vulnerability and authenticity, where each voice mattered. With each passing second, the dynamic of their kitchen transformed. The walls that had felt so rigid only moments before began to breath-taking. In the laughter mingling with poignant stories. Hours later, as they gathered around the counter strewn with papers filled with notes and ideas, Laura felt lighter than ever. Jake's laughter filled the room while Lucy recounted stories of her own creations, each word carrying the weight of sincerity. There, amidst the scatter of notepads and remnants of Mrs. Henderson's cookies, Laura realized something crucial. Sharing these snippets of life created a new path, a rhythm amidst uncertainty, bound with love, understanding, and shared dreams. As Lucy raised her cookie to toast, bright-eyed and beaming, Laura paused, relishing this moment. They weren't just grasping at plans for a blog, they were building a canvas for their lives, an open invitation for healing within their greater circle. "I love that we can all share our stories, no matter how messy they might be," Laura said, her voice ringing with warmth. At that moment, she felt rooted, knowing whatever lay ahead, they would confidently explore life, piecing together the fragments of dreams still taking flight. And as she took a bite of a warm cookie, flavor bursting in her mouth, she laughed. For the first time, she understood that the real magic wasn't merely in the cookies or the recipes. It was the power of connection, the heartwarming sweetness of sharing, facing fears together, and embracing their truth. With renewed spirit, she turned to Jake and Lucy, brimming with hope. The world outside buzzed with uncertainty, but together, they stood firmly connected in a warm cocoon of love, ready to write the next chapter of their lives. And so, the adventure continued, and that kitchen, once a backdrop of tension, glimmered as the birthplace of stories yet to unfold. Laura knew deep in her heart that this was their moment. The journey had just begun. Now, I need you to join our journey and never miss a moment. Subscribe immediately to this channel so you can catch all the exclusive stories that lie ahead, and if you found this transformation inspiring, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the positivity. I want to hear you. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us open the door to sharing our stories together. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting our channel. Let's keep this connection alive.